G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. The other day I was watching a video on YouTube from Tony's Bonsai. I think he's based in the UK, and it was basically a literati challenge. He's just challenging other bonsai YouTubers to get in and have a go at making some literati style trees, and that is one of the styles that I've been playing around with, so I thought, yeah, I might jump in and have a go, create a few. Most of the challenge videos that I've been watching are all trees that are sort of foreign to us down here in Australia, so I thought I'd put together a few Australian natives. Might be trees that people from overseas haven't seen before, can't get, may never have even heard of. I've got a couple of trees here. They're going to be a little bit harder to get bends into. They are a little bit stiffer in the trunk. I've got a peppermint gum, which is a eucalypt, and I've got this casuarina. It's a little bit older. I was planning on doing some other stuff with it, but I'll try and do that into the literati style. I don't have raffia to wrap the trunks in. I do have a bit of a stretch bandage I'll wrap around the trunks, and then we'll wire them up and see what sort of bends we can get into those. The other two trees are both melaleucas, but they're very different melaleucas. This one here is Melaleucas patulata, or the honey myrtle. Yeah, this one I'm led to believe is fairly rare in the wild. It was sold to us as Melaleuca urbiana. It's got pretty cool looking little foliage on it. I reckon it'll ramify fairly well, and it seems to be pretty flexible, so I reckon we can get some cool shapes into that. I have got some cool shapes into some casuarinas before, some really sharp bends, but that usually involves bending some of these branches down when they're really young and then letting them harden that way and then continuing on. So that's a fairly slow process, which I don't believe is the idea behind the challenge. Right, so we might start with the casuarina. I'll throw these other ones aside. The first thing we're going to have to do, because we want to just basically bend the trunk into all sorts of weird and wonderful shapes, is we're going to have to clean all the trunks up. Clean the trunk up. And an interesting fact about a casuarina that many might not know, all these here, they look a lot like pine needles on a pine tree, but all these are actually branches. None of these are leaves. Even out on the tips here, all these smaller ones, they're all branches. You have to look very, very close to see the leaves on a casuarina, and I'll put a bit of a photo up. The leaves are sort of sleeved around the branch, like you wouldn't even know they're there. Yeah, just something a bit different about the good old Aussie casuarina. Alright, might leave that bit of foliage on top for now. Well, I'll wrap some bandage around and see if that doesn't help hold it all together when we start trying to do some pretty harsh bending on it. I mean, raffia is the traditional thing that people use to try and help hold everything together while you're putting some bends and stuff in it, but I saw this on another one of the literati challenges, so I don't know, never tried it before. We'll see how it goes. I know this casuarina is pretty stiff, so can't need all the help I can get. Now, when I was watching Tony's video, I noticed he said he wasn't going to bother tagging channels and, you know, the way a challenge typically works. And that's cool. That lets everybody sort of get in and join in and have a go at the challenge. But what I would like to see, I don't know if he's interested or not, is maybe compiling a playlist with everybody's videos, and then maybe setting a date in 6 or 12 months time where we can all sort of check back in and have a look at where everybody's trees are, because it's one thing to sit here and put bends into a tree, but it's sort of another thing entirely to see what it looks like after it's grown out for 6 months, 12 months, a couple of years. I know most people lose interest in these challenges fairly quick, so I mean, it's probably a bit much to expect people to come back in 2 years' time and update a video, but you know, 6 months' time, maybe we could come back and revisit what people's trees have looked like. I'm not going to try and put any more movement into the bottom section of this tree. I'm pretty sure it's got enough in it already. Plus it's very, very thick and stiff, so it's not going to be bending anyway. But we will continue up. Probably want a bit more down the bottom. I don't know how much this poor casuarina will actually take before it just goes, nope, no more. Like I said, I've put some pretty severe bends in some before, but usually by taking these, because you can bend them at a pretty sharp angle, and I've even cracked them and left them attached and they've re-healed up, and you can get a really sharp angle that you can't generally get by using wire on a branch. Usually you get those, what they call S-bends all the time. Might leave that fairly straight for now, because we'll let that grow. As we let that grow, that'll thicken this up, which will help to set that all in place. And then we can work on shaping this later on. Well, that's probably pretty cool. I reckon that's got some nice flowing shape to it. It's not two-dimensional. Yeah, I don't mind that. I might even slip pot that when we take it back out, because it is fairly tight in that pot. Try and encourage it to grow as much as we can, and then we can come back and revisit that, and we'll try and, whether we put some more bends in it or whether we just try and establish a foliage pad up here. But for now we need to let it grow, let it thicken up, let it set into place. But that's pretty cool. I didn't think that would actually bend like that. The one that I do think I'm going to break, eucalypts. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to go with the eucalypt, but I will wrap it up. Expecting a delivery truck at some point this afternoon, so. Got a PDO driven wood chipper coming for the back of our tractor, so we can start making some wood chips for our crappy soil that we have at our place here. So I guess if any of these bonsai trees don't work out, you know where they'll be going. Straight through the wood chipper. Alright, we'll wrap this fella up. Don't need to go much further than that. And we'll do the same thing. Just grab a bit of wire and go to town on the poor little fella. Like I said, I don't really know how this one's going to respond, but I chose it because it is nice and tall and they do have reasonably small leaves, and I'm led to believe they do downsize a fair bit when you start to restrict the roots and that, so it may be alright as a smaller sized bonsai. I'll probably put another length on the bottom there to make sure we can hold it in place. I'm also a bit of a fan of using multiple wires rather than just one big heavy wire for this. It just adds a little more support from the wires as well. You know, you've got twice as much wire running around. I don't know, in my mind it just gives a little bit more support. So hopefully if you crack something, it will hold it together long enough for it to heal. I don't know, nothing scientific that proves that or disproves it. I don't know, just how I think it should be. Sounds right in my head. Right. I'd love to do a really contorted one with this. I've actually got a rainbow gum, which is another eucalypt, not an Australian native, but another eucalypt that I'm trying to do in a really twisted, contorted mess. If you look up Australian snow gums in Google Images, you'll see that they grow on like cliff faces and stuff, like with a lot of wind and stuff, and that's how they grow, like really twisted and contorted, and they've got that really multicolored bark, and as it's so twisted and contorted, it just, the colors all run through it. It looks pretty cool. I am trying to replicate that with a rainbow gum. It's pretty slow going so far, and people that I've seen that play with rainbow gums as bonsais don't seem to have a lot of luck. Mine seem to be going, I've got two at the moment. One I'd like to try and grow as a sort of like an informal upright, I guess, just like a typical eucalypt. And then the one I've got that I want to do is the twisted contorted snow gum. So if anybody plays with rainbow gums and has had success with them, let me know what you do. I know they're a tropical gum, so I am keeping them in a tray of water most times, so that they have plenty of water. We've tried growing them in the ground here. I don't think it stays wet enough for them because they don't ever seem to last very long. As soon as we have a dry spell, they seem to turn up their toes. So the ones that I'm using as bonsai, I sort of try and keep them fairly wet. We may actually be able to get it fairly. I mean, that's not really the aim of the game, I guess. That's not really literati, is it? But it's sort of hard to you got to remind yourself not to repeat the same movements over and over, otherwise you end up with a spiral and it just looks terrible. Looks like a spring. I'd even like to do something like that. Get them really... Yeah, see, I don't mind that. I mean, I don't know how your literati traditionalists will feel about that, but I don't mind that real contorted sort of a look. And again, we'll probably leave the top half of this so it's got something to feed itself from and it can grow. again, set all this in place, and then we can go again. That'll be another one that we'll be sure to come back and have a look at. These ones here I think will be flexible enough that we shouldn't need to. Yeah, I'm going to have to cut all them off. Might leave you for a minute. I'll shut down this GoPro before it overheats on me. I'll clip all these branches off and then we'll come back and try some bending. Right, we're back. I did decide to wrap this one. What bandage I had left. Sort of had a thought. With this one, we might try to do something a little bit different. And just try and do some graceful movements down the bottom here. And then just see if we can't put a little bit of dramatic movement in up further, up towards the top. Just for something a little bit different. And I guess something to keep in mind when you are doing these sorts of things. Just realise that you are going to make mistakes sometimes, you know. You're going to break a tree here or there. Snap branches, you know. It's just part of the game, you know. Probably shouldn't feel too bad about doing it, you know. I don't believe anyway. I mean, we do try and be as careful as we can with our trees because we do care about them, but you know, if we didn't push them a little bit and make them into something interesting, well, we probably wouldn't keep them, you know, so they wouldn't exist. So I don't think we should feel too bad when we do sort of make a mistake and break a tree, you know. As they say, if you're not breaking them, you're not making them. Some shit like that. I don't know. But you don't know where the limits are if you don't sort of push them a little bit. I don't know if I want them quite. Maybe a little more. Just nice, gentle movement. And then maybe see if we can introduce a nice, something really sharp back on itself. And sometimes it helps when you've got them wide like this if you sort of twist them as you go. I think definitely having this support with the bandage on the trunk definitely helps, I think. Like I said, raffia is what they normally use. It's a natural thing, but I don't have any on hand, so the first aid kit got raided. Lucky I don't engage in any high risk activities, eh? Don't watch my next video. Still looks a little corkscrewy to me, which is sort of something that you want to try and avoid. It just doesn't look, I mean, a lot of these don't look natural, but it looks really contrived or man-made when you sort of got that repetitive round and round, bend and bend. I don't like this. See how it's just a constant radius bend? It just looks weird. Sort of changes it's not just a constant circular curve. It goes tight and then opens up a little. Just makes it a little more interesting. I reckon once that all sets into place, we can muck around with the front then. Choose which angle we want to look at it from. And lastly, we've got the spathulata. And this poor old thing has just been sitting on my bench, just doing nothing, being neglected. I've got a date of the 3rd of the 11th. I think that was 2020 when I planted those. So they're 2.5 years old. Been sitting on the bench, just totally neglected. I mean, I've planted a few out around the farm. There's a couple in the dog's pen, trying to give her a bit of shade. But yeah, the ones that I've still got here haven't really been looked after all that well. So I pulled the weeds out of this one this morning and thought, you'll do. So I'm probably not going to do anything else with it. One of those we're going to keep. We'll take the bend. And this one's not super difficult to bend either, it's fairly flexible, so we won't need a lot of wire on it. That was handy. I think I just broke the top off that one. Lucky it reshoots really well. But, let's get a bit of light wire and try and wire that into place so it doesn't go around everywhere. It may be okay. It may just break off too. We'll see. This one's already got a couple of natural bends in it. We might just try and just work on some of those that are already naturally in the tree. Not that I want to do anything too severe with this fella. I can hear him creaking and groaning a fair bit already. He may not be as flexible as he seems. Which is interesting because he seemed to be very, very flexible just as a tree in a pot, and then when you wire him up he doesn't want to bend. But then maybe if I wrapped him he might have been a little bit more compliant. But I can hear him cracking and carrying on, so I won't go too much. We might even just leave that one as is, and we can work on him a bit over time if he makes it through that initial process. Sometimes you go a bit hard on them and the trees don't make it. I'm pretty confident with those first three they'll be fine. Which probably goes to show how much having that bit of support there does help in the bending process. There wasn't any cracks or anything in any of those, and I gave some of them a pretty hard time. So anyway, Tony, if you're watching, I'll tag you, so hopefully you'll have a look. What do you reckon? We'll get a playlist together. Everybody can chuck their videos in a playlist, and we'll revisit it in 6 months, 12 months, and just see where our trees have ended up. It'd be pretty cool to have a look at these a year down the track, I reckon, and yeah, just see how they went. Anyway, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.